The beautiful game. To have a fair game and one that functions properly, it must have a few things in place. These things are decided before the game begins, and all participants know what the aim is and agree to be a part of it. A fair game needs rules, players, a referee, and the players need to know their position in the game, what their role is, and the specific rules which apply to their position. When we apply this analogy, the beautiful game, to a courtroom scenario, we can expand our consciousness and see things clearly from this wider perspective. Official business is the name of their game. Make no mistake, a courtroom is their game and their rules, and the judge plays referee. The players are men, women, businesses, people with assets who want to protect their interests. The rules are procedure, conduct, honour, and process by which the participants in the game operate, called civil procedure rules or pre-action protocols. The positions are judge, barristers, magistrates, witness, defendant, plaintiff, clerk, usher, jury, etc. Jurisdiction is key. Some of the positions in the game only happen in certain games. We don't need a goalie in tennis, for example, and that's where we need to talk about jurisdiction. For the purpose of our analogy, jurisdiction is equivalent to the type of game you are playing in, e.g. tennis, badminton, football. All have very different setups, rules and procedures. Depending on the jurisdiction of the court, different rules apply and different players are present within different roles to play. Different roles have specific positions within the courtroom and indicate the role the player is acting in, e.g. the dock, the stand, the bar, the bench, etc. Jurisdiction explained. Within the English legal system, we have different jurisdictional arenas, namely civil jurisdiction and criminal jurisdiction, that is the common law. These arenas have specific procedure and rules which apply there and cannot be transgressed. If the football goes outside of a white line pitch area, or if other rules are broken, a game is stopped and a penalty is applied. Matters are dealt with within the rules and the duties which apply to these arenas. It's the same with the law. Criminal, common law jurisdiction, all criminal matters for offences of wrongdoing. Civil, all matters relating to disputes to do with the functioning of society and people. Within each jurisdiction, there are options to bring remedy to the disputes or for the crimes which are being dealt with in the respective jurisdictional boundary. So what's happening when you are summoned for a parking ticket or a utility bill which you've not paid is for a civil matter. You have consented to the system dealing with you under civil jurisdiction, but you consent to attending a magistrate where you are assumed to be a criminal by the legal name fraud, and therefore fined for your wrongdoing. In fact, there never was any harm or a tort, as it's called under common law, and what is happening is a blurring of the jurisdictional boundaries for the purpose of extorting your value, your money. It's the equivalent of a judge dressed in a gorilla suit with a netball bib, running onto a football pitch at half-time, handballing a goal, and the referee gives it the all clear. Courts are a tiered system. There are a number of courts which deal with different matters, mainly on the basis of how serious the matters are and what value they hold in respect of damages or awards for a type of case or claim. On the right of the screen, you'll see the hierarchy of courts going from the highest court to the lowest, Supreme Court to magistrate. It's an interesting point to note that there's such a group of people called the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council. Now, in my law books that I've read, this seems to be a very influential bunch of individuals who are not part of the court system and nor are they elected, but in fact have a great influence over what the courts do. It's a very dubious circumstance. You will mostly be concerned with the lower two tiers, and they have most influence over you if you allow it. Each tier deals with civil and criminal jurisdiction, but some have little jurisdiction over civil matters, such as a magistrate. The diagram on the screen here is worth researching some of these groups for your own interest and background knowledge. Giving power to authorities. The legal system really exists to provide a framework for authorities acting on our behalf when carrying out all necessary work to keep society running, so that it is certain that our rights are protected whilst they work on our behalf with our consent to do so. By being given certain powers to act on our behalf, it must also be ensured that authorities do not overstep or abuse their powers, and that they act in accordance with the guidelines set. These guidelines are called Acts and Statutes, and the government legislates for these guidelines. However, the government officials and authorities serving the public good must abide by these rules to protect the rights of individuals. They are artificial rights or privileges given to officials to be able to operate in an official capacity and usually for the good of the public, which we agree to by consenting to a parliament and a governmental system. These individuals working in an official capacity as a public servant rightly work for us on our behalf. Unfortunately, they have been subsumed into civil servants and are therefore serving Caesar and the Roman legacy, corporatization. Oops, we've dropped the ball. It's unfortunate that for generations gone by, we as a populace have become complacent and completely disengaged from the political process, given that our lives are seemingly comfortable for the most part, and in comparison to the third world, we live in relative luxury. It appears that everything is being taken good care of. It has become increasingly apparent, however, that things are really going downhill. The system looks less and less like a healthy system that supports everyone for the greater good. More and more the rich get richer, etc. There are even more and more reports of fraud, deception and wrongdoing by officials who abuse their powers and privileges. We have to look to ourselves. We have not as a country kept a keen eye on them, nor held them to account properly for their wrongdoing. We watch TV and football and work all hours to pay for goods and services and to maintain material household. Options for remedy. It is important to realise that what we have developed and accepted as law in this land is primarily a Roman occupation of the original law of the land, which is common law. The common law precedes the civil jurisdiction and has been brought under the civil criminal jurisdictions and forms the bedrock of the law system. Under the common law, as a man or a woman, you have rights which must be recognised if you claim them. If you do not claim your rights, by default you are assumed to consent to being dealt with under the Roman jurisdictions as they see fit. If you claim common law jurisdiction in a court, you must be able to move the court or motion the court. You are in charge. Common law pertaining to people, common men and women. Contract law pertaining to people, trading and business. Admiralty law pertaining to equity, trusts and the assets of people. Inalienable rights. As a human being in your full capacity, you benefit from full inalienable rights. This means that your rights cannot be taken away from you, except where you agree and consent to it. Consent forms the law. When you fill in legal forms, your consent is given form within or under the legal system and jurisdiction. You were born onto the land as flesh and blood being, meaning you have the benefit of free will to do as you wish under the natural law or universal law, where in case of one whom has caused harm to another, we have agreed to a system of common law and systems necessary to be able to protect ourselves from those who have not been able to moderate their own behaviour sufficiently so as to not cause harm. Asserting your rights. Withdrawing your consent is a fundamental necessity in asserting your rights and putting up a defence against authoritarian intervention to take back control of your private life. by notifying individuals and corporations of your status, refusing to accept a title which attaches assumed obligations and duties to you, and by rescinding all licenses, you withdraw all consent and ties to the system, thereby removing any obligation to perform under that system. By staying steadfast in your assertion and knowledge that you are subject to no one else on this planet, you cannot be forced to consent or partake in any system. Choices and consequences. It is a fact of life that we are presented with choices in almost every moment of our lives. What we choose in any given moment takes us along a path and has an eventual outcome or consequence either in the moment or at some future point. Not making a choice is also choosing on another level. It may be the refusal to face a situation through fear or the unwillingness to take full responsibility for a situation. Whatever we choose brings us a new and valid experience. It allows us to grow and to learn and to see a new perspective. Our actions all have a ripple effect on others or ourselves, and in moving forward we accept that in some cases we may have to leave something behind. It could be a way of being or even people who no longer see eye to eye with your newly expanded view. There may also be financial consequences for yourself in establishing yourself as an individual separate from the system, if you choose to take it that far. Fraud. The legal name is fraud. Take responsibility with direct action against these corporate entities which are out of control and do not respect you. Empower yourself by dropping your legal name. All bills, debts, banking and licenses are to the legal name. The legal name is not yourself. You are flesh and blood. You are not a legal fiction. Correcting our mistakes. So we have observed the wrongs and the wrongdoing. We have decided to take a stand and to put things right. We are taking responsibility for ourselves and are willing to be honourable in making our new path forward. The key to putting things right is that a fraud has been committed. Wherever there is a fraud or mistake in law, it is required and necessary to turn back the clock and to put things right. Amends must be made. Hold your horses, this doesn't mean that you're about to receive a massive compensation payout. No, the best you can hope for is that you will be debt-free and you will be left alone. Your credit rating will be annihilated, though it can be repaired. I've not done it, as on principle I require credit no more. As an evolutionary step forward, you may want to consider challenging the system for damages for the crimes as we've described here. However, I suspect it will be a tricky path. May fortune favour the bold. Good luck with that. It is my feeling that the real evolutionary leap forward for mankind will be in being able to forgive and release from judgment or vengeance. Trust in the universal law to set the record straight.